but it was a serious boxing match, a good fight that ended with most fans in the arena believing their man won.
Indeed, and thereupon hangs some of the story, which we'll get to in the hour ahead. Floyd, in the weeks before the fight, you seemed to be promising a landslide, a one-sided performance, something which would look stunningly easy to people who weren't familiar with all the steps on your rise to the #1 spot on the pound-for-pound rankings.
So after Oscar De La Hoya came out stating that Haney beat Loma like Mayweather beat me, #robbery, Floyd Mayweather CEO Leonard Ellaby responded with laughing emojis, straight up laughing at Oscar De La Hoya's silly comment. But hey, I guess it does make sense. If you were one of the people that thought Oscar De La Hoya beat Floyd Mayweather, then most likely you are one of the people that thought Loma beat Devin Haney. It's funny because they never gave Floyd Mayweather credit for automatically rematching his opponents when there were huge controversy, such as Castillo fight and the Maidana fight. Floyd Mayweather automatically gave them a rematch. And to this day, they still talk about how those fights were robberies, despite the fact that Floyd Mayweather automatically ran it back and beat both Castillo and Maidana in a more dominant fashion. However, the fans didn't care that Floyd Mayweather proved them wrong. Not once, but twice. They still talk about how the first Castillo and Maidana fights were robberies, even though if you go back and watch them fights, Floyd Mayweather did edge them fights. The Castillo fight was close, however, Floyd Mayweather won. I mean, Castillo gave up the first 4 to 5 rounds. Also, the first Maidana fight was close, but Floyd Mayweather clearly won, as Maidana shot his load in the first round. Then Floyd got back in control to win the fight. So my point is, whenever people talk about these fights, they don't even talk about how Floyd Mayweather came back and fought Castillo again and beat him in a better fashion. How Floyd Mayweather came back and fought Maidana again and beat him in a better fashion. They still talk about the first fight, even though Floyd won and came back automatically to beat each person, not once, but twice. However, now all of a sudden, these same fans that diss Floyd Mayweather every chance they get, now they want to use Floyd Mayweather as an example, talking about Floyd Mayweather automatically ran it back. Devin needs to do the same thing. Which, first of all, if you guys want to see a rematch, then talk to Lomachenko first, because Lomachenko team already made it very clear. They are not going to give Devin Haney a rematch, as if they won the fight, but they made it very clear they do not want the rematch.
This is a question for both Vegas and Vasiliy. What do you hope to achieve from appealing? Is it a rematch you want?
Look, first of all, we're not going to give a rematch. I don't know. Right now you're asking a question like what you're going to do. So we didn't know. We have to see it. We have to talk to the promoter. We have to see what is available, and we will see.
I think it was the last fight, Haney in 135. I think so.
Second of all, Devin Haney versus Lomachenko wasn't as close as Floyd Mayweather versus Castillo, because when it came to Devin Haney versus Loma, Devin Haney clearly won 8 rounds. But when it came to Floyd versus Castillo first fight, Floyd only won 7 rounds. Now, even though that's only a 1-round difference, 1 round does make a difference in a close fight like that. However, I look at Devin Haney versus Loma more so like Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather instead of Floyd versus Castillo, since the fight wasn't that close. Devin Haney versus Lomachenko is so reminiscent to Floyd Mayweather versus Oscar De La Hoya, because these are old media ultimate beloved hopeless fighters. They love Lomachenko like no other, and they loved Oscar De La Hoya like no other. Talk about history repeating itself. ESPN pushed the agenda that Lomachenko won the same exact way HBO pushed the agenda that Oscar De La Hoya won against Floyd Mayweather. I kid you not. HBO, they tried so hard to say that Oscar De La Hoya won. Just like ESPN tried to do the same thing in so many slick ways and words, stating that they thought Loma won even though the fight could have went either way. The commentary was so biased toward Lomachenko, the same exact way the commentary on HBO was so biased toward Oscar De La Hoya when he was fighting Floyd Mayweather. This is how ESPN and HBO manipulate and brainwash the public to believe in their agenda and push their narrative on the public. Also, another slick trick they have, they try to use the fans to push their narrative and agenda by stating the fans thought Lomachenko won. The fans thought Oscar De La Hoya won and beat Floyd Mayweather. Even though, ironically, the fans were booing Devin Haney before the fight began, as soon as he walked into the ring. The fans also booed Floyd Mayweather the same exact way. So what does that mean? Did the fans have Devin Haney and Floyd Mayweather losing before the fight even began? I mean, make it make sense, but they so desperate, old media will use anything to push their narrative and agenda. We all know it ain't a coincidence. The fans have always booed the fighters on the coincidental list. They boo them because they have the complexion for the neglection. And the fans always cheer for the foreigner who has the complexion for the connection. However, let old media tell it. The fans booing these fighters means something. It determines if they win or lose. But if that's the case, then I guess Devin Haney lost against Linares too, since the fans were booing him. I guess Devin Haney lost against JoJo, Kambosos, so on and so forth. Even Floyd Mayweather, I guess he lost 90% of his fights because in 90% of his fights, he was getting booed. Therefore, we all know when the fans boo these fighters on the coincidental list, it means absolutely nothing. Like Floyd Mayweather said, being 50-0, it's not that simple. It didn't come that easy. Floyd didn't just beat 23 world champions, where 10 of them were on the pound for pound list and 20 of them, or more than 20 of them, were Hall of Famers. Floyd said he didn't just beat these opponents. He had to beat the commission, the fans, the commentators, and the corruption of boxing to be 50-0. He had to be that dominant in order to pull that off, which is likewise for Devin Haney. So when you see ESPN push their narrative and agenda on Devin Haney versus Lomachenko, they did the same exact thing when Floyd Mayweather fought Oscar De La Hoya. HBO invited Floyd to sit down with Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant. They had Oscar De La Hoya on live air, and without any hesitation, Larry and Jim Lampley told Floyd to his face on live air, the public thought Oscar De La Hoya won, and we thought Oscar De La Hoya won. I kid you not. Floyd was sitting there speechless, probably waiting for them to pass on what the heck they were smoking on. After watching that, I had to go back and watch the fight just to see Floyd Mayweather clearly winning. I mean, even Stevie Wonder could see Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya. However, that's how desperate old media was, and they still desperate to this day, which is why we call the fighters they root for the hope list, because all old media and the fans do is hope that they beat the fighters on the coincidental list. However, their hope just never comes to fruition. Therefore, when Oscar says Haney beat Loma like Mayweather beat me, #robbery, he knows deep inside that's not true, because he already called Floyd Mayweather the greatest of all time. However, he still says that because he knows how old media were pushing the narrative when he fought Floyd, the same exact way they pushing the narrative when Loma fought Devin Haney. It's the same robbery narrative in order to discredit the fighters on the coincidental list And you best believe it ain't a coincidence. But over time, just like when Oscar fought Floyd and they tried to push the robbery narrative, it died out over time because the more people went back and watched the fight, they noticed Floyd Mayweather clearly won. Just like today, the robbery narrative is already dying out because the more people that go back and watch the fight, they automatically retract their comments that the fight was a robbery. In fact, majority of them say Devin Haney won, from fighters, trainers, experts, and fans alike, which is why the rematch is not necessary, in addition to the fact that Lomachenko already said he doesn't even want the rematch. Since he's an intelligent fighter, he understands the rematch is only going to get worse for himself. Devin didn't go to box. He went to fight Loma and still managed to beat Loma.
Not just as a great challenge for the two fighters, but as a direct challenge for the sport, or an opportunity for boxing to once again prove itself on the world stage. In light of all that, how would you rate both the fight and the event?
The event, 9.8. The fight, 8.2. The event sizzled with anticipation and glamour. The fight couldn't match that with fireworks and drama. If you were rooting for a brawl, you'd have to go back to Tony Soprano versus his brother-in-law. But it was a serious boxing match, a good fight that ended with most fans in the arena believing their man won.
Indeed, and thereupon hangs some of the story, which we'll get to in the hour ahead. Floyd, in the weeks before the fight, you seemed to be promising a landslide, a one-sided performance, something which would look stunningly easy to people who weren't familiar with all the steps on your rise to the #1 spot on the pound-for-pound rankings. So, was this what you expected, or was it tougher and closer than you'd thought?
Well, Oscar Dela Hoya is a good fighter. I expected a good fight, and I feel that it was a great fight. It was a good fight between both, and I went out there. I felt that I won unanimous, but I feel that Oscar did put on a hell of a fight and put on a hell of a show.
All right. Oscar De La Hoya, your long stretches of inactivity made you more of a question mark entering the fight. Mayweather was seen as younger, faster. He was the favorite. Did you match your own expectations? Did you exceed them? Or did you in some way fall short of what you wanted to do?
Well, I think at this stage of my career, I exceeded them. I mean, obviously, when you're facing the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, you don't really expect to even touch him. And you know, Floyd Mayweather Jr., he's a great fighter, and I have all the respect in the world for his abilities. But I kind of surprised myself. Obviously, with all the hard work you put in, you know, you want to see results, and I was very content and satisfied with what I accomplished.
I'll be honest, you surprised and impressed a lot of us too. And with all that having been said, let's now turn our attention to the prize fight. As we look back now, we have the advantage of being able to show you official scorecards round to round en route to the split decision for Mayweather. And one point should be underlined well in advance. This turns out to be a close fight. When we enter the 12th round, the cards will show you the outcome is still up for grabs. 2 of the 3 judges give the last round to De La Hoya. And had the 3rd judge, Jerry Roth, done the same, the ultimate verdict would have been a draw. So there is suspense right up until the final bell, and plenty of questions for both fighters to consider in the aftermath. Oscar, there's a perception in the public fascination with your career that you're looking for one big win on which to go out, and you came close but didn't quite get it here. When people look back, there are still going to be lingering hurts in the hearts of your fans about the closing rounds of the Trinidad fight, the fact that you were leading midway through both Mosley fights. Once again, halfway through this fight, you're right there with a big chance to win. Are you looking for the fight that you can finish the right way so that your career can finish the right way?
Well, let's just put it this way, Jim. I didn't win the fight, but I don't feel like a loser.
Final thoughts from our perspective. At the end of the day, this sport is about more than competition, and this fight becomes another exhibit in that regard. Fighters want to win their fights, and what Floyd Mayweather does maximizes all his chances in that regard. He avoids punishment, he carefully selects his opportunities to score, he gradually erodes the will of his opponents, he walks away clean. Pernell Whitaker and Roy Jones did all the same things, and like Mayweather, they rose to the top rung on the pound-for-pound ladder for significant periods in their careers. But fans want something else. Fans want fighters who take risks to please them, who understand that the passion play is more moving than the clinical exercise, who are willing to come into harm's way to try to do harm. That's what Oscar De La Hoya has given to boxing through the whole second half of his career, ever since he moved to welterweight, with the exception of those poignantly unforgettable last 5 rounds versus Felix Trinidad. How different his career might have felt if it weren't for that one night. How much less popular he might have been if he had taken the Whitaker-Jones-Mayweather route and tried mostly to rack up win after win. The fans who think Oscar pulled off the near impossible last Saturday night are mostly voting with their hearts. But those hearts are largely what drive the sport. In that sense, the best way to see the outcome of Mayweather-De La Hoya is not just as a close win for Floyd, but rather as a victory for both. Both men accomplished what they set out to do. Larry?
Jim, way back when there hadn't been a popular heavyweight champion for a decade, a headline read, "Can Joe Louis save boxing?" Like live theater, boxing survives as a fabulous invalid, now as a niche sport. True, few kids grow up dreaming of becoming champions, and few uncles today will buy them boxing clubs for their birthday. But you can find 3 or 4 boxing shows weekly on cable TV and many more replays of classic, and there are enormous and very, very dear friends of boxing in the Latino population. And globally, just recently, 35,000 at a fight in Wales, 20,000 in Denmark, 3 packed arenas in Germany. A Japanese fighter attracts 60 million viewers. And when Manny Pacquiao fights, crime-ridden areas of the Philippines have 0 crime. And last Saturday, the lively corpse of boxing sat up with fists pumping because one fight exploded into a $150 million happening. One day, guaranteed, the question will be asked, can, say, a heavyweight version of Oscar De La Hoya save boxing?
Indeed, and that day may be well down the road. Boxing will still be around. Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you, Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather, for your time.
Ironically, the non-heavyweight Floyd Mayweather ended up becoming the biggest pay-per-view star of all time, not Oscar De La Hoya. To make matters worse, you guys noticed the stereotype that Jim Lampley was using against Floyd Mayweather that they have been using for the past century in the sport of boxing, which is the fighters on the coincidental list, they only win because they fight defensive. This is the stereotype that old media still uses till this day on Shakur, Devin Haney, and all of the fighters on the coincidental list. Even after Devin Haney took the fight to Lomachenko, Devin didn't come to box Lomachenko. He went to fight Lomachenko, and he beat Lomachenko by fighting. However, you don't see them talk about that. You don't see them talk about, man, Devin Haney is one of the most exciting fighters in the world. With the performances he put on against Linares, Jojo, Kambosos rematch, and now Lomachenko, he's one of the best, most exciting fighters in the world. They don't do that. Instead, they want to shift focus from the old narrative they created on Devin Haney and start a new robbery narrative, all to discredit the youngest undisputed champion of all time, like they did with Floyd Mayweather. It's funny how history repeats itself. I want you guys to notice the hypocrisy and contradictions by Jim Lampley when he said Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker, so on and so forth. These fighters maximize their chances of winning by playing defensive, by fighting defensive, even though Roy Jones was an offensive machine. Additionally, with that same breath, Jim Lampley said, the fans want to see a fighter like Oscar De La Hoya, who leaves it all in the ring. However, ironically, when Oscar De La Hoya fought Trinidad, Oscar was moving, Oscar was running, since these are the keywords they like to use, more than Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker all combined together against Trinidad. He was running all night. It's funny because Jim Lampley was calling that fight. And do you guys know what Jim Lampley did? He tried to justify it. Instead of saying he's not giving the fans exactly what they want to see. Instead, he was defending Oscar De La Hoya, even though his own fans were booing him. But Jim Lampley, he turned to Oscar De La Hoya lawyer. And that's exactly the racial double standards we be talking about here. Check it out.
I have to assume that the boos are being directed at De La Hoya by the Trinidad fans who want to see Oscar stand and fight instead of moving away from their man's shots. They're booing De La Hoya because when he moves this effectively, Felix can't find him.
You know, the picture you get, presumably from out there among the fans, is one man dancing around the ring and the other man chasing him. There's a natural inclination to think one guy's trying to not to fight and the other guy is trying to fight.
But that's not true.
Well, he's making it work. You know, there's an old saying in boxing, you win this fight, you'll look sensational in the next one. And De La Hoya is just trying to win this fight.
He's throwing just as many punches as Trinidad. He's choosing when to stand his ground and rallying and moving away.
Oh, but that's superior conditioning, the footwork.
The boxing.
Trinidad folds up and doesn't throw a shot, though. You got to throw lots of punches if you're Trinidad. The knockout will come if you connect.
But it's hard to throw punches at a moving target.
And that's what's happening tonight.
Oscar has moved for 10 and a half rounds.
Yeah, but what's so interesting is Oscar's always been the one to close the show. Now he's trying to close the show by guaranteeing a victory for himself simply by staying away from Trinidad.
Well, let's see what his instincts lead him to do.
Throw anything hard.
This is not an edifying moment for De La Hoya the way he's fought this round. It's not what his fans have expected from him.
But he lands a big left hook there, and it gets him off the...
When Jim Corbett, the man who took the heavyweight title from John L. Sullivan, had displayed some of the same defensive skills as Jack Johnson did, sports writers praised him as the cleverest man in boxing, Gentleman Jim. But when Johnson fought that way, he was said to be lazy, shiftless, showing the yellow streak which all African Americans were supposed to share.
With black boxers, every trait that was a positive trait, they tried to turn it into a negative trait. If a black boxer was tough and could withstand punishment, well, he could withstand punishment because his skull was thicker, because he was insensitive to pain, that it really was a sign of some larger inferiority. If he was a smart boxer, a wily boxer, then he was slightly deceptive, there was something untrustworthy about his activity in the ring.
With the facts being laid out, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe below and click on the notification bell to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, Akhi TV. Peace. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.